All right, first, does it make sense for you to use UAVs in your surveying business? How many of y'all use UAVs now? All right. Did it make life easier? I see a few heads shaking yes. I see some that kind of want to see what everybody else says first. I know there was only a handful, so I don't want to single you out. Usually if you purchase what you need, it's going to make life easier for you, and you're going to be able to do your jobs faster and with more profitability. All right, so let's kind of look at this scenario to see if it would make sense. This is out in Texas. This is some land that our CEO of SmartDrone, Rob Kamek, was looking at purchasing, or maybe he had purchased. It's 320 acres. He wanted to do a couple of things that a topo survey would have come in handy with. He's wanting to put a pond on the lake, or a lake or a pond on the site, and he also wants to put in hunting blinds on some of the higher elevations. So he's wanting to look at this. He's also starting SmartDrone in the process. So he goes around and he's doing problem interviews with all of these land surveyors from all over the country, because they're trying to make a product that's going to be good and useful for land surveying. And as you can see here, that's about the only open area that's on that 320 acres. It's pretty thick. It's pretty heavily vegetated. If you look kind of on the left, this area here is kind of what he's looking at. That's the area that he was standing in. So pretty much 99% vegetation, more than likely, thick tree canopy. As you can see here on the right with the legacy topo map they had, kind of rougher terrain in some areas. So as part of this problem interview, he wanted to see how quickly a surveyor could get a return on their investment if they were to buy a drone and start using it for surveying. So they asked everybody about how much would it take for you to do a topo on this piece of property. The average response they got from 40 plus surveyors was about $142,000. I'm not a land surveyor. I don't know what y'all charge. Some of y'all may be thinking that's high. Some of you may be thinking it's low. Some of you may be thinking it's about right. One person told me that it was probably real thick canopy and they wouldn't want to deal with it, but they would for that price. So you may have some of those estimates in here as well. So once they got this number, they wanted to see exactly how fast they could do it with a drone. So they go out, they spent about 7 hours in the field flying this. So they're mainly interested in the LiDAR data. They're just wanting to do elevation. They're not trying to get ortho photos and stuff like that. So it takes them about 7 hours to fly this. So about a day's worth of work. It took them about 10 hours to process everything. And that's in the, letting the data geolocate, doing the vegetation filtering, stuff like that. They're trying to get to a deliverable product. And then they spent about 4 hours in CAD cleaning it up. So if you had a job, even if you're saying you would have only charged half of that, or a quarter of it, or whatever whatever price you have in mind for what I showed you, and you could do it in a couple of days, how quickly could you get a return on your investment? Probably pretty fast. Yes, sir. For those prices, it was probably during the summer, because you probably got a lot of tree canopy, you got a lot of leaves, and you probably got some people that are putting some prices in there for dealing with Texas heat. I was out there for a few weeks for training, and I would probably put a subcharge on there for Texas heat as also. Just write it as a line item. Hot as hell. 10,000 or whatever you want to.
Discount every way still winter.
Yeah, I tried it with them. When they said you're going to come do your training in September, and I was like, well, what's the temperature there in September? Because I know it's pretty hot here, but it's not like 108 hot. And when I landed, I got in the car and it was like 108 degrees. And I was like, can we put a pin in this thing until maybe like December-ish? Didn't work out. All right, let's see. Also, something else we did, we just did a drone delivery down in Georgia. It was a guy that does a lot of corridor scans. Do a lot of y'all do corridors as far as like putting in sewer pipes and stuff like that? He was doing, I think, 17 miles worth of corridor. He did a few miles. He called us in to do a paid demo, and we flew 3 miles. He bought the drone because he saw how much faster he could get stuff done. And then we went back Monday and we flew the last 11 miles for him in this 150-foot wide strip of land. So you can get stuff turned over really quickly, especially when things go right, as far as your flight planning, the weather, and all that good stuff. Even if we'd had to postpone because of weather, you're still getting it done a heck of a lot quicker than if you were going and trying to field run, 16 miles or whatever as a total. All right, some other reasons we might want to use drones in our land surveying. We've already kind of hit most of this. You can reduce your cost and you can grow your revenue. Now here's the big takeaway with this. A lot of people think that just because you do something faster that you need to charge less. Is that necessarily the case? What do y'all typically charge for like a topo survey? Are you billing them per acre, right? Per acre and how thick it is. Well, the drone didn't make it smaller.
The density of the data, 50-foot grid, 100-foot grid, whatever.
Exactly, yep, you're right. So the drone didn't make the trees, less leafy, and it didn't reduce the number of acres in size. It just means that you got through it a lot quicker. So you don't have to reduce your cost. The way I look at it, especially with surveying, is if I was a private citizen and I wanted to survey, could I probably go out to one of these places that rents GPS equipment, pick up something, go to my house, and try to do a survey with it? I could probably try. There's videos on YouTube, I'm sure. What is that survey going to be worth when I get through? I would say it'd be worth the paper that it was written on, but it's got ink on it now. So you can't even resell the paper. It'd be worth absolutely nothing. People are paying you for your knowledge, your skills, your licensure, all the work that went into you being able to take a drone and fly something in a couple of days that's 300 or 400 acres and being able to look at the data and know that it's right. That's what they're paying you for. So you don't have to, just because you did something faster, reduce your cost. You can continue to charge exactly what you are and get that return on your investment that much faster. So of course, by doing all that, you're going to get a good shift in your production. You're going to be able to be more productive because you're going to be able to get more stuff done quicker. Also, what Tripp was talking about at lunch, is it hard for some of y'all to get employees right now? Yes, especially reliable ones. All right. The younger people that are starting to come up, high school, college age, are they interested in manual labor? Not a whole lot. All right. Is it really, is it fun for them to think about going out and marching through the woods and cutting line of sight and trying to do grids and everything else? They don't want anything to do with that, right? But if you took somebody that was kind of on the border, they're looking at land surveying, they think this might be a good career choice, and then you show them this magical flying robot that they can control, and it gets data for them, is that a way to kind of start trying to get people interested, especially the younger generation, in surveying?
Yeah, it's just like a video
Yes,
game.
exactly right. It's just like a video game to them, and they're looking at it, and it's something now that they can do that's kind of fun. It reduces the amount of work they have to do, and they're going to be more interested in that. I feel real...
So you make them cut some line.
Well, they may just apply for the drone pilot position. But, I feel sorry. There's a guy in somewhere in Spartanburg County where I'm at, and in 2016, when I was still at the Spartanburg Police Department, I drove by his shop one day and he had a sign out front that said, surveyor helper wanted, part-time or full-time, will train. And I did a lot of side work at Spartanburg that usually involved guarding apartment complexes that were in less than desirable crime rate areas. And I said, hey, that might be a way to make extra money without having to do what I'm doing. And I went to the academy before I could even call the guy. Well, we're driving around just kind of letting people know that we're doing stuff and we're in South Carolina. And in 2022, the guy had the exact same sign out in front of his business. Surveyor helper wanted, full-time or part-time, will train. This is going to help you get people. It's going to help you retain people. Even if some of you in your businesses, you may have a survey crew chief that's got a ton of experience, but they're getting a little bit older. and maybe they're thinking about, retiring or doing less work. We're working with a company now in North Carolina. They're evaluating our drone and some other ones, but they are going to eventually buy a drone just so their senior survey crew chief can fly it. That's going to be his only job, just because they don't want him to retire, so they can retain that knowledge. Because then if they need it, they can at least kind of lean on him and get that expertise when they need it. Also, safety. Safety is always something boring to talk about until you're injured. But can this improve safety? Yeah, if you've got a real area that bad terrain, maybe you've got snakes that you come across, this could potentially help you reduce a lot of those safety problems as well. Because if you're not stomping through the woods as much, you're less likely to have an employee that twists their ankle or gets bit by a snake or something like that. How many of y'all have ever had either somebody that you were subcontracting with, or maybe one of your employees that maybe were less than reliable, and they got all-state syndrome? And y'all can think about that one for a second. But they got all-state syndrome, and they decided to file like a workman's comp complaint. Have y'all had to go through that? I see a few heads shaking up and down. One workman's comp complaint that can be prevented is probably going to be enough to get your return on a lot of the drones that you could purchase. So safety is also a good reason. There's about 200,000 construction injuries each year. Land surveying kind of gets filed under the construction injuries for the report this came from. So that's about 3% of the workforce per year injured. If we can reduce that a little bit with a drone, why not? Replenishment, we've kind of hit that a little bit already. It's kind of projected to be low for land surveying. Y'all are already feeling the pains from that. 2% replenishment over the next 10 years, 4% for all other occupations. So if you're short on people now, you're going to be shorter because you're not going to replenish people as fast.